So I'm going to do 3 reloading videos. This is one of my reloading presses. It's a Lee 3-die turret press. I want to start with the Lee powder system. Here's the Lee powder system that I use. It's a disc system attached to the press. I use a riser. So here's the powder system. And the powder system uses these discs. Okay, it's called the auto disc. Every company has a different way of doing powder. Lee uses discs, and on each disc is stamped a number. So you'll see these numbers stamped on here. If I get the camera to focus on it pretty well. Okay, so you'll see these numbers stamped on here, and that's in cc's. So if you see 1.09 cc's, that's 1.09 cubic centimeters of powder. And so what you're going to do when you want to load something is you're going to take a quality reloading manual. I have this one that I bought several years ago when I decided I wanted to get into reloading. I think they're up to the 55th edition now or something like that. And you look up your particular cartridge. So let me look up a really popular one. One that I like to reload, one that I think is a good starting load, is the 38 Special. So you'll look in your manual and you'll find your cartridge, 38 Special. And they'll have all sorts of recommended loads based on bullet weight. Another place you can look is I've got my little, I call it my magic notebook. The spine's broken, it's falling apart. But this is where I've actually gone and looked up load data from the internet. And you say, ooh, the internet. But specifically, if you go to Hogden's Reloading Data Center, Hogden.com, they actually have loads for 38 Special, 9mm, 357, pretty much all of your popular loads. And then when you, of course, you buy Hogden powder, you're going to find Hogden load data for it. So when you look at load data, you're going to see a couple of things. You're going to see the bullet weight, and you're going to see the powder type. And so I'm loading a 158 grain bullet, and so I'm going to look through here and find some 158 grain bullets. And you'll see in my notebook I've actually got those outlined with highlighter. And if I take a particular powder, it doesn't matter which. Let's say one that I use a lot is Tight Group. And I say, okay, here's 158 grain. Let me get my setup right here. 158 grain, Tight Group, and it'll give you a minimum and a maximum, okay? And the minimum is 3.2 and the maximum is 3.8. Now, Lee offers this chart on their website, okay? They offer this chart on their website for every powder known to man. It's a CC conversion chart. And so I'm going to come on here and I'm going to find Hogden powders. I'm going to find Hogden's powders, and I'm going to go down specifically and find Tight Group. And I'm going to read over until I find there's 3.5 and 3.8. Okay, so 3.5 grains is 0.30 cc's. Okay, and that's as low as I can go with this disc kit, is 3.5. So the minimum was 3.2, the maximum was 3.8. And I always like to load somewhere in the middle usually. It tends to work well for handguns of any type, whether revolvers or semi-automatics. So I go through my little disc kit and I find 0.30. So there's my 0.30 disc. And I take my powder measure, and the way the Lee set works is you take your powder measure off. They have the base kit and the custom kit. The base kit, the screw screws into the plastic housing. The custom kit comes with these slick little brass nuts, and if you buy a Lee press, you want the custom with the brass nuts. So anyway, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit here, wrong way. And so you take off your 2 brass nuts and you lift this off, and we need the 0.3 cc. So there's the 0.3 cc, and the way it works is you're going to put that number underneath that number. There's a tab, And that tab is going to line up with this metal piece here. Okay? So when you put it on, it should sit so that that .30 cc is underneath, is what that tab's holding on to. That's how much powder it will dispense. Okay? Pretty simple process. And then you simply put this guy here back correctly, and you're ready to dispense your powder. Okay? It's a pretty simple process. I will tell you that the Lee chart is always on the safe side. So what that means is, according to their chart, I should dispense 3.5 grains of powder. It will dispense probably 3.3 or 3.4. Never, ever, ever have I come up high. I've always come up equal or low. And that's why I pick a number that's kind of in the middle. Okay? So there we go. We're ready to dispense the powder for our tight group. Now, the other thing I do is, you see you've got this removable lid. I always, what was I reloading last? I was doing 357 Magnums. And it's H110 357 Magnum. And I put on there what I'm doing so that if I load some and I leave my press, I know what powder's in here and I know what I was loading. Just one way to keep from having a boo-boo. So then you attach that back to your press. Another item that Lee sells is this riser. And what that does is that gives you a gap between the powder and the actual die. And I love that. I have it on all my presses. I wouldn't live without it. And so anyway, that is how you set up your powder measure if you have a Lee powder through expanding die system. If you have the standard powder measure, I'll pull one of those off and show you what that looks like. That's this guy right here. It's more square, it's bulkier. It works fine, except you can see I've got glue on here. What happens, the screw actually screws into the plastic. And if you take this off much, like me, I change calibers. And so if you take this off much, the plastic will crack. I found a quick solution is I'll put a little bit of oil on some sheet metal, and I'll dab some JB Weld on here, and then I'll set it on that sheet metal and let it sit till the JB Weld hardens. When you pull it off, the JB Weld will be flush with the bottom, and then the screw goes into it, and the JB Weld will hold. It won't crack, and that's worked very well for me. All of mine have this JB Weld, whether they've cracked or not, and I haven't had to buy a new one in 10 years. So anyway, if you're having trouble with your Lee powder measures, you either use JB Weld or buy the nicer, the upgrade. But anyway, that's how you set up your powder measure. I'm going to do another video where I talk about how to set up your 3 dies, so I'll do that here in a minute.